Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to be everything for everyone? How you're always shifting hats, changing hats, presenting differently in different spaces? Well, authenticity has one voice. And when you're able to tap into that authenticity within yourself, life becomes not only smoother, more focused, more linear, but also a lot more fulfilling. Hello, my name is Patricia Pogo Christian, and I'm the president of Common Sense Classrooms, where the world is your classroom and your life is the curriculum. This masterclass is about walking you through steps where you can discover and utilize your authenticity. Because authenticity is not just something that a lot of us happen to stumble upon. Authenticity is genuinely something that lives within you. It thrives within you. However, if you don't access it, it will just sit there patiently waiting for you to say, hey, come and join me on this life journey. So I'm going to piggyback off what you were just saying, because my purpose process was a hot mess. At about your age, I had graduated from high school. I was given the physics award, so I figured, oh, if I'm good at physics, then that is my direction. Went to Champlain College, did the whole pure and applied science program, and it was like I was hitting my head against that concrete wall. I'm like, I don't even like this, right? And so before I continue, what I want to say is I want to just thank everybody just for this opportunity just to be here. I got some notes here. And so basically, I really want to pay attention to the elders, just thanking the elders. I'm from Ghana, West Africa. I was born in Canada. And so one of the things that we always do first and foremost is thank the elders and the presence of the elders. And the reason I bring them into this whole equation is because I am, you are, we all are the product of our DNA, the DNA before them, the DNA before them, so our elders are with us. And so when we tune into that authenticity that you spoke to, that person, that humanity, what ends up happening is our elders will align with us when we are moving away from who we are supposed to be, and they are guiding us. Then that's where you feel that discomfort, that shift. But when you're in alignment with who it is you're supposed to be, who you are supposed to be even before you knew you existed, because it's in your DNA. And so that process, that purpose process for me, basically, it had to do with me falling in line with who I was, right? And so I had spent lots of time in the classroom with my mom, who was a teacher, and I just didn't think that was what I was supposed to do, but I was like, let me give it a try. So I did the Concordia ECE program, ended up going into teaching. 34 years later, I'm here. I was a teacher, right? And so now I move into transformational speaking, and so basically what happens now is that physics that I did, that I was supposedly good at, that the science program that I went into, all of that comes into play. It all comes into play. So the engineering program that you're in, and purpose, your engineering program basically is all about addressing a problem, figuring it out, trying to move from there and thinking outside the box and thinking of different ways of solving things. That is how you find your purpose. So your purpose is there. You might not see it, but you try, like you said, you travel, you try different things, you stay in line with who you are, what you're feeling, because those ancestors will guide you in that respect. And so all that to say is, so in conclusion, what I wanted to say is that basically, I wrote this down, and so don't sing along with me, but what came to my mind when I was preparing this is that basically I have loyalty and royalty inside my DNA, right? And so all of that you have within you, it's going to guide you. Be in tune with who you are, because it's not just you in there. Your ancestors are with you. So as you just saw there, as I journeyed into the evolution and discovery of my own purpose, as I said in my clip, it was a hot mess. Because a lot of times what you need to do is you need to struggle to basically remove that film where others told you who to be, that film that clouded over your own vision, your own understanding of yourself. That film where we looked around us and thought, well, if I see celebrities on TV or I see somebody out in the world doing something that is classified as beautiful, then that's who I need to be. And so as we start peeling away those films and those layers, then we start to rediscover who we are and rediscover what brings us joy, what gives us a voice. And as we rediscover that, the discovery of that and the nurturing of that person and individual and unique and majestic person that we are, that's where our purpose starts to evolve. You don't just jump into purpose. Purpose is something that is a process. It's a process of self-discovery and then manifestation of the different talents, skills, and tools and just your whole being manifested into a business, a career, a relationship, right? And so authenticity is a process. And so come along, let's start this process together.
Backwards. When I first started, success was very superficial. Having the right body, the right husband, the right family, the right material goods, the house. Now, totally flipped on its head. It's very substantial. Success for me, on a very basic level, is having my own children. I have 4 children between the ages of 34 and 22. Having them ask me for advice, having them value what my life experiences have brought to me. Success for me, being able to be, as you're saying, my authentic self, being able to guide people to become their authentic selves without the fear of what it is people are going to think, especially as a Black female, right? And so my experience, my story is that 34 years teaching, high school, elementary, adults, all the gamut. And my career was abruptly stopped because I had traveled to and returned from Ghana for the first time. And when I got there, I was born in Canada to Ghanaian parents. When I got there and touched the land and went out into the air in Kumasi, I was explaining to one of the young ladies that something happened where I felt I saw all of this. I had been here before, right? And so knowing that I'm born in Montreal, Quebec, in Pointe St. Charles near Griffintown, I had never been to Ghana, West Africa before. And what I came to realize is that my body, my DNA, it's like an electrical current. Once I touched the land of my ancestors, that electrical current was connected. And everything felt familiar, and it made no sense to me until I realized that. And so that purpose changed me. Came back to Canada, where I was teaching in a high school, following George Floyd's murder, and I always ran an African Diaspora Club. So now this experience I transferred to my students, gave them a voice. They decided to use their voice to address the discrimination. They decided to address it and voice it. And so that's where, for me, the whole experience of success and I almost want to go to the we can, yes I can, that's where it really hit me. But on a substantial and spiritual level, that was the beginning of my beginning, where I rose and I felt the level of success because in spite of all of that adversity that was coming towards me, I was able to use it as understanding that to activate and begin a journey. Success is a very substantial internal awakening that has made me realize that between myself, my ancestors, my God, I'm unstoppable, right? In a respectful way. I'm not just barreling over people. But the ideas and the visions, they're happening in a way that I could not have possibly imagined. So success, when you connect with who you are, who your ancestors are, where you come from, all of that, and it's going to be your journey to have. And as engineers, you already have practice figuring out what's the problem and what are the different solutions we can use to solve it.
The first step of discovering your authenticity is basically getting a clear understanding as to what points and sections in your life where you have disconnected, right? So where are you? Who are you? And so that process, the first thing we do is we basically just journal. So we write and we think about, okay, so let's take a work scenario, for example. So I was a teacher, and so at work, what would happen is I knew what the curriculum is. I know what the curriculum is. I go through I look at the subject I'm teaching, and then it tells me where I have to go from A to B. And so as a young teacher, I would go from A to B, go through, and in some curriculums, you actually have the verbiage. So it tells you the actual words to say. And so in my earlier days of teaching, and I'll have to say I was really blessed because I would read the verbiage and I wouldn't always follow the rules because it didn't speak to me. I would still try to work with the curriculum, and I still got from A to B, but in a very short time, I realized that that curriculum is not, it's not resonating with me. And if it doesn't resonate with me, if it doesn't speak to me, and if it doesn't make sense to me, then all I'm giving to my students, to my clientele, to my clients, all I'm giving them is a robotic regurgitation of something that is meaningless. So going back to the curriculum, looking at it, going back to the substance that I'm sharing with you, looking back at it and making sure that it means something to me. And so in this journey for authentic discovery, using my example as a teacher, what I did is I thought, wait, if I need to teach religion, for example, I would always go back and say, okay, so I can look at somebody on the cross, right? We have Jesus on the cross. And so his example was always a very blatant statement of, these are some of the sacrifices you may have to encounter when you speak truth in a space where truth is not ready to be heard, right? And so truth is very jarring to many people. Many people want to just toe the line, just fall in line, just follow what everyone else is doing, just maintain the status quo. And in maintaining the status quo, it brings a lot of us this very uncomfortable sense of being because it is not speaking your truth. And so the symbolism of this man on a cross, some people call him prophet, some people call him the savior. The symbolism of this man on the cross is basically someone who spoke truth. And so using that example, I would say that as you discover your authenticity, there will be some discomfort in that process. Because as you start to speak your truth, and perhaps some of you have tried and attempted, many people will be very uncomfortable with you speaking your truth because it doesn't align with the status quo. It doesn't fall in line with, oh, that's how we've been doing it all these years. It doesn't align with, wait, but you're supposed to make me comfortable, and when you speak truth, it makes me very uncomfortable. And so with the authenticity journey, part of it is developing a mindset and understanding that not everyone will receive your authentic self. And so what authenticity does is it helps you to kind of sift out the noise. It helps you to sift out what is not going to value you moving forward. Here are the results of a poll that was taken, and in regards to authenticity. And so the results of the poll show that awareness is not weakness, it's an awakening. And when you build up that awakening, attached to that awakening very often is something called courage. Courage is a muscle. It's not something you're just born with. Few people are born with courage, but many of us who have gone through the systems where we were told from a very young age how we were supposed to be and how we were supposed to act, courage is a process, it's a muscle. And so you start with very small acts of courage, right? You start with very small acts of, for example, you might say no when you always said yes. And the mere act of saying no for one thing in the day that you really don't want to do or that you don't want to be a part of is very powerful, because that little act of courage will become another little act of courage, and then another little act of courage. So kind of like the beads on my wrap here. So I'm going to come in a little closer. So these little beads on my wrap, I sewed each and every individual bead on this wrap. And so it goes all the way around and around the side and everywhere. And so this wrap in and of itself for me, which is part of my brand, it's a constant reminder to me that any task that I choose to start, any task that may appear to be daunting, overwhelming, seemingly impossible by most, I can accomplish it one bead at a time. And the same goes for courage. Courage, you start with one task at a time. Just saying no, or just basically doing one thing at a time, and then slowly and surely, your courage, like a muscle, will start to build up. I would also encourage you to understand that the word no is not negative. A lot of people feel that when you're saying no, that you're generating negativity. So some time ago, I'd say maybe about 20 years ago, I was a teacher in the United States, and this young lady, the secretary, Sue, I remember her name, she handed me a book. It was called Boundaries. And this book was basically when to say yes and when to say no to take control of your life. And so this book, in a nutshell, what it taught me is it taught me that I am definitely a child of God. And because of that, I have been given gifts and talents that no one else has been given. And my role, my purpose is to manifest those talents for the betterment, for the nurturing, for the nourishment of the students and the people that I come across. And so because that gift was given to me from a greater force than any of us can ever encapsulate in one person, but we're all a part of, because that talent was given to me, I understand that my purpose is to utilize this talent, this grace, this ability. And so when I encounter situations, environments, people that would like me to do something or be something that move against the authenticity of my gifts, I'll say no. But what I know more importantly is that although I say no on the outside, on the inside, what I'm truly saying is I'm saying yes to my Creator. I'm saying yes to that power that funnels all that energy and love and joy into me. I say yes to my God. Because I figured the no that I say here may bring me some discomfort for, maybe 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 months. But the yes that I say to my Creator and the source of all of who that I am will bring me energy and just keep on pouring into me for eternity. And so I owe it to my Creator and myself to say yes to them. And I don't give this whole spiel to everybody. I just know within myself, when I say no, I understand it's because the authenticity needs to stay aligned, needs to be nurtured. The authenticity needs to be protected. And that's okay. Authenticity and awareness is not weakness, it's an awakening. Another barrier to authenticity is the fear of failure. Fear of failure makes people, paralyzes people. Fear of failure puts barriers in your mind and in your intuition and in your incentive to do things. And so, is failure really failure?
Do you believe to be one of your greatest failures, and what did you learn from that failure?
For me, one of my greatest failures, I had mentioned that I won that physics award, so I went right into physics. So for me, that failure for me was just basically choosing to believe what everybody said I should become and not actually taking the time to tune into what it is that spoke to me, right? And so that caused me probably 2 or 3 months of depression, because I was like, I don't know what's happening. And so that for me would have been my biggest failure. However, that failure was also, I always see failure as God tapping you on your shoulder to tell you to look in a different direction, which I ended up going into the teaching program. And so I don't really believe in failure, because I see it as God saying, nope, you have to look somewhere else, you have to look somewhere else. I'm trying to show you something.
Once you start to understand the power of failure, the power of the universe trying to redirect your attention to another option, then failure actually becomes another source of energy, of just getting more done. Because now what failure does is it opens up your mind, it opens up your imagination to try to discover and figure out what else is out there that will allow me to accomplish this goal that aligns with my purpose. What else is out there that I haven't thought about? So you may seek out someone who is where you want to be. Seek them out. And it doesn't have to be in your own little circle. Go online. We are an age of technology. Go online. Go on LinkedIn, go on Google. Just go online and find someone who is where you want to be. Reach out to them. You have nothing to lose. Even if you write out your request, you introduce yourself, write out your request, and you send it to them, and if you never hear from them again, you have sent out, you have clarified, you have clarified even further what your purpose is, what your intentions are. You've put that out into the universe. Whatever it is you drafted, whether you shared it or kept it in your journal, it will add to your purpose. It will add to the clarity of who you are and which direction you're moving in, right? So if you're able to write, find the person that you would like to, who is where you want to be. If they're in your individual circle, excellent. If they're on LinkedIn, excellent. If they're further out, if you saw a newspaper article about somebody, look them up. You would be surprised as to how many people will still respond back to you. When I was teaching, I had one situation where we watched a movie about a young man, Eugene Brown, who learned how to play chess while he was in jail, just to stimulate his mind and to pass time, but more so to stimulate his mind. When he left jail, he basically found a building virtually abandoned, purchased it, renovated it to the best of his ability, and started a after-school chess club which became quite outstanding because now children children in the neighborhood were able to come in and learn how to play chess and eventually enter the chess world where lots of money can be made and things like that. And so eventually a movie was made about him. So I showed this movie to my students and I thought, oh, so I literally went online, picked up and emailed him and inquired about, how, what kind of presentations he does. And so he wrote back and we corresponded back and forth. How did the story end? So he did not attend the school that I was at. There were a few little time conflicts that didn't work out. But the point is, put it out there. Everyone that you're looking at is another human being who wants to connect. And so even if they connect, they connect. If they don't, you have gained even more clarity on who you are, which direction you're moving in, and then just what you're about and your own alignment. Reconnecting with yourself. There is something that we call the sixth sense. So we have 5 senses that we learn about in school and in science. So we have seeing, smelling, tasting, hearing, and touching. 5 senses. The sixth sense people often speak to is just that gut feeling. Now, I want to tell you about this sixth sense because this sixth sense is a huge component in staying in alignment with your authenticity. So I'll start off with a story. I am from Ghana, West Africa, so this is a wood burning carving that my firstborn made for me. And so I'm from Ghana, West Africa, and I never went to Ghana until I was in my mid-50s. I was born in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and I always wanted to go. And so over time, children, employment, life, all the hats that I described at the very beginning of this masterclass that I shared with you. And so it started to seem as though it wasn't going to happen because 4 children later, that was a big ticket. But it happened. It happened in 2019. So in 2019, 6 of us, all 6 of us, mother, father, 4 children, we all got on a plane, went to Ghana. And in the preparation of getting ready to go to Ghana, I had shared with my family that once we secure the tickets and I'm still on Canadian ground, I'm going to be crying. Once we start packing, I'm going to be crying. Once we get to the airport and the plane takes off, I'm going to be crying. And once the plane lands, oh my gosh, I'm going to be crying. Well, none of that happened because once we made the decision and we secured the tickets, then we had to get the vaccines, the passports, and all that stuff. And so, if anything, I might have cried because of all the expenses for 6 individuals, but didn't do that. Like a soldier, got everything done. So very, very, very soldier-like, very, very focused. So we go on the plane, get to Ghana, get through customs, still haven't cried, right? Because I'm thinking, I've been waiting for 55 years to do this. No, still not crying, just still really staying in the moment with everything. But here's when things shifted. We got through customs, got through everything, got our luggage, and we stepped out into the Kumasi air, this sweltering, nearly suffocating, beautiful air that just comes and hugs every cell, saying, I want your sweat, because it was so warm. But we stepped out into the air, and I looked around. My feet stepped onto the pavement, just right outside the entrance of the Kotoka airport. Now I believe it's called the Accra airport. And something washed over me. I said to my family, I have been here before. Intellectually, it made absolutely no sense. It was my first time my physical body stepped on the land in Ghana, West Africa. But I said, I have been here before. The smell is familiar, the heat, the people. everything is familiar to me. And so, of course, we still had to get ready, look for our ride and everything like that. But it took me a few years to pinpoint what exactly happened. Because I'll never forget that. As I tell you, I'm in that moment again. I'll never forget that moment. And it dawned on me because I had heard Barack Obama describe the same sensation, and I heard Steve Harvey describe the same sensation a year or two after I returned to Canada. And it dawned on me that I am, my ancestors are all from Ghana, and so I am the 8th of 9 children. The first 6 were all born in Ghana, and then we met in Canada after I was born, maybe when I was 4 years old when we met in Canada. And so I am removed. I've always been removed from my ancestors. And so when I returned back in 2019 and set foot in Ghana and inhaled the air, it's as though that connection between my DNA and the DNA of my ancestors, it connected, right? I've heard somewhere that even the air that we breathe was once breathed by the dinosaurs. So all these DNAs and all these things are floating through the air, right? And so once that connection happened, it's like my ancestral DNA was activated. Because you have to remember, your DNA is a result of your parents' DNA, which is a result of their parents' DNA, and their parents, and their parents, and their parents before them. So everything within you is still very much connected and tied to your ancestral DNA. Your ancestors reside within you, within your DNA. And we don't even want to count. I don't know the number for how many cells we have. And within each cell, how much DNA resides within us. But that DNA holds your ancestors' DNA as well. So all of that to say that sixth sense that we have, when we are aligned and our DNA is aligned with the purpose and task that we have been sent here to do and possibly to continue, then we have a sense of peace, a sense of calm, a sense of joy. When we are not aligned, when we're in situations with people and places or things that don't align with us, you're looking over your shoulders, something is off. That ancestral DNA is your warning signal. It's telling you something is off. You need to somehow realign and get somewhere where you are at peace, where you are calm. And if you're constantly living in a state of chaos and noise and all of that stuff, then that settlement doesn't happen. That settling doesn't happen. And so in order to be in touch with your authentic self, you must be mindful of that sixth sense. Unfortunately, we have grown up in a world where gaslighting is a craft. We've grown up in a world where, you're being too sensitive makes us shrink. We've grown up in a world where we don't want to upset or make people not like us. Then your life is horrible. So as we are older, as we're building up those little beads of courage, understand that not being liked and not being authentic are two things that you may need to be more mindful about removing from your life. Because if you're not liked, for being who you are, then that is perhaps a space you should not be in. If you are authentic and you are not liked for who you are, then perhaps that is not a space you should be in. If you are pretending, if you are posturing, if you are trying to be liked and putting yourself in a space where people supposedly like the mask that you're wearing, again, perhaps that is not a space that you should probably be in, because your source of energy will be depleted if you live authentically. Your voice, your joy, and your purpose will continually recycle, continually fuel you, because that authenticity is coming from a power greater than yourself. And so that is what will allow you to continue moving on, and your joy, your voice, and your purpose will strengthen and grow and multiply. Journaling. If you're able to journal and write and observe and be mindful and very intentional about who you are and your authenticity and how it filters out into your family relationships, sibling relationships, friend relationships, business relationships, you'll notice that there is a consistency with how your body is responding to the way that you're behaving in all these different spaces that you walk into on a daily basis. Authenticity filters your life. It helps to remove out, think about dirty water going through a filter, right? So you have your muddy water, you have your filter, you pour that muddy water onto the filter. What's left on the filter is the dirt. And what comes out is your clean water. So authenticity helps to filter your life. It takes courage, and you can start with little bits of courage, one beat at a time. Stepping into purpose. Once you start to experience your authenticity, you can step into purpose. One of the things that you can do to step into your purpose, to step into your authenticity, is start seeing who you are. Start seeing yourself. Be yourself. And do it for yourself. Right? And so you need to really start just loving who you are. And in order to love who you are, you need to figure out who you are. And that's where the journal writing comes into play. Write down things that brought you joy, things that made you frustrated. You'll start to see a pattern. I'd like you to spend some time doing that. Think about just today. List 3 things that brought you joy today. List 3 things that made you frustrated today. Spend 5 minutes a day doing that, and you'll start to see a pattern. You'll start to get clarity on who you are. You'll start to understand what brings you joy, what brings you frustration, and how to cope with those. So, again, my name is Patricia Pogu Christian, Common Sense Classrooms, where the world is your classroom and your life is your curriculum. So I run classes, workshops, and keynotes. And you can find me at Common Sense Classrooms Inc.com. That would be my webpage. And I'll send you to the landing page where you can actually purchase a workbook and or sign up for classes where you can walk through these exercises that I've presented to you here during this class, where you can walk through these exercises and discover and build and strengthen your clarity about your authentic self so that you can move through this world authentically. Because if you're moving through this world and you're not authentic, what's the point? But if you're not authentic and if you're not genuine with yourself, then life is a very different experience. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for taking on the courage to move forward with this journey to discover your authentic self. I'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye.